Today we're doing 8.3 notes. We're going to be dividing and multiplying rational expressions. Okay, so it says you try the odds. So we're going to start off with example 2. The first thing I need to do is figure out if there is any greatest common factor that I can take out from the top or the bottom. At the top, I took out x, y squared, because both these parts of the expression have at least one x and at least two y's. So if I take out x, y squared, that would leave me with 5y minus 2x. Okay, so now we have common terms at the top and the bottom, so we can cancel those out. We have 1x, so we can take out 1x, and then we have 2y's. So at the top we're left with 5y minus 2x, at the bottom we just have x. I want you to write down any excluded values. So if we look at the beginning, x cannot be 0 and y cannot be 0, because if they were 0, then the whole function would be undefined. So go ahead and write that off to the side. Now we're going to do example 4 together. Once again, first try and figure out if there's any greatest common factor that we can take out from the top and from the bottom. So I was able to factor out the top. At the top, I just took out x squared. When I take out x squared, I'm left with x plus 3. Now this bottom part, we should be able to factor it. I want you to use the x and the box method like I've showed you before. So first draw your big X. Write AC at the top and B at the bottom. Now we're going to write what A times C is at the top. A times C is negative 24 times x squared, so we're going to get negative 24x squared. And then for B, we just have negative 5x. So remember, we need two values that we can multiply to get negative 24x squared. And then we need those two same values to add to get negative 5x. So let's figure out what two numbers we can use from 24. Okay, so by using negative 8x and positive 3x, if I multiply those two out, I'm going to get negative 24x squared. If I add those two, I would get negative 5x. Now go ahead and draw your box. We're going to do reverse box method. So remember that A goes in here, and C goes in here, and then in here we write these two new values that we got. So these two. Remember at the top we need two numbers that multiply to give us x squared, so that would be x and x. And then to get negative 8x, you would need a negative 8. And to get positive 3, you need a positive 3x. So now that you have factored, go ahead and rewrite it over here. And now we have x plus 3 at the top and x plus 3 at the bottom, so those cancel out. And we are left with x squared over x minus 8. Remember, we need to write down any excluded values of x. So x cannot be 8, and x cannot be negative 3. Because if we use x equals 8 or x equals negative 3, right here, we would get an undefined function. For number 6, we are multiplying. So here, I'm going to need you to use the x and the box method again. Okay, after I factor, I get all of this. So now we can start canceling stuff out. So at the top, we have an x plus 1. We also have one at the bottom. We can also cancel out x plus 7 and x plus 7, and then x minus 3 and x minus 3. So we're left with x minus 9 divided by x minus 1. Remember to write down any excluded values. So x cannot be positive 1, can't be negative 1, it can't be positive 1, it can't be negative 7, and it can't be positive 3. Now let's move on to number 8. So number 8, we're finding the quotient, so we're dividing. When you divide two rational expressions like this, you can also just flip the second part and then multiply. Okay, so Like I said, I rewrote it and I flipped the top and the bottom, so now we're changing the sign to multiplication. And we do what we've been doing, so cancel out anything that you see at the top and the bottom. At the top we have y, bottom we have y, and that looks like that's about all that we can cancel. So we're left with x plus y divided by 7x times 4x is 28x squared. And then excluded values, x cannot equal 0 and y cannot equal 0. Now we're doing number 10. Again, they want us to find the quotient. So when you're finding the quotient or when you're dividing, remember you can flip the top and the bottom of the second portion and then change the division to multiplication. So let's go ahead and do that. So all we did was rewrite it. Remember, we switched the top and the bottom and changed the division to a multiplication. Now all we can do is factor and start canceling stuff out. So I want you to use the x and the box method to figure out what the factors of all of these would be. Okay, so here it is factored. Now we can cancel out anything that we see at the top and the bottom. So x minus 8, x minus 8, x plus 9, x plus 9, x plus 5, x plus 5, and we will be left with x minus 3 over x minus 1. Now we need to remember to write the values of x that are excluded. So x cannot be positive 8, x cannot be negative 5, x cannot be negative 9, and x cannot be positive 1. And that's it for today's notes.